We live in an age where the mind refuses to rest. It scurries like a mouse through corridors of possibility, gnawing on the edges of every what if. And what then? We play chess against a future we cannot see, arranging pieces on a board that does not yet exist. And in that restless activity, we convince ourselves that we are safer if only we can anticipate every move. But in truth, we are no more secure for all our sleepless calculations than a child who imagines monsters behind every door. To overthink is to believe that the burden of the universe lies upon your own frail shoulders, as though God Himself has stepped aside and left you in charge of the blueprint. You rehearse scenarios that never unfold. You draft speeches for conversations that never come. You hold trial in your head for an audience that never gathers, and all the while you miss the quiet truth that the hand of God has already written the script, not in pencil, but in ink that cannot fade. Consider how little the sparrow thinks of its own tomorrow. It does not pace about, wringing its tiny wings, wondering whether there will be seed enough on the ground. It knows only to fly when morning comes. And yet not one of them falls without the Father seeing. If a creature so small can be preserved by the same providence that crafted galaxies, how much more is your life carried in that invisible palm? We often mistake our fears for wisdom. We say, I am only being cautious, I am only preparing, but deep within it is not prudence that drives us, it is distrust. We imagine that if we do not spin the wheel of possibilities fast enough, God may somehow forget to be faithful. But His plans do not rest upon the spinning of our thoughts. His purposes are older than our anxieties. Before the earth cooled from His breath, He knew where your steps would fall. Overthinking is a thief. It steals today by making you live tomorrow before it arrives. It is the shadow of distrust that stands between you and the light of trust, and the tragedy is not only that it exhausts you, but that it blinds you. For while you trace and retrace the possible paths, God is opening doors you have not even imagined, and you do not see them because your gaze is fixed upon the maze inside your own head. The call, then, is not to sharpen your mind until it pierces the future, but to rest your soul in the certainty that the future is already pierced by the hands that were nailed for you. The call is not to demand a map, but to follow a shepherd, to walk one step at a time, knowing that though the path may twist and darken, the guide does not falter. So lay down the endless questions. Release the scenarios you have rehearsed to exhaustion. The plan is already written. The author is already good, and the story, though unknown to you, has never been uncertain to him. Overthinking is distrust disguised as wisdom. Overthinking often dresses itself in the garments of wisdom, but beneath the surface, it is nothing more than distrust in finer clothing. We tell ourselves that we are being careful, that we are guarding against failure, that we are considering every angle before stepping forward. Yet in truth, much of our mental labor is not prudence but fear. It is the silent confession that we do not quite believe God will be faithful unless we have planned for every contingency. The mind begins to run in endless circles, rehearsing conversations that will never take place, playing out scenarios that never unfold, worrying over dangers that never materialize. We convince ourselves that we are preparing, but what we are really doing is doubting. We are doubting that there is a hand greater than ours guiding the outcome, doubting that the one who shaped the universe knows how to arrange our days. Overthinking feeds upon this doubt because distrust is its root. When the heart trusts, the mind can rest. When the heart doubts, the mind must scramble to build a safety net from thoughts that never hold. In this way, overthinking becomes the shadow cast by a deeper issue. It reveals our unwillingness to place the weight of our future into hands other than our own. True wisdom does not gnaw anxiously at tomorrow, but walks steadily in the light of today, secure in the knowledge that God governs what we cannot see. Overthinking is a counterfeit form of wisdom, for it seems responsible but leaves the soul restless. It seems cautious but drains life of joy. It seems intelligent but blinds us to the simple truth that no amount of thought can add a single hour to our life. Trust, on the other hand, is the soil where real wisdom grows. It allows us to make decisions in peace, to prepare without despair, to act without being paralyzed by fear. When we begin to trust, overthinking loosens its grip, because we no longer believe that the entire universe waits upon our calculations. We start to see that God has already anticipated what we have not, already solved what we fear, already provided for what we have not yet encountered. Overthinking tries to protect us, but it cannot, only trust can. Overthinking seeks to control, but control was never ours to hold. And so long as we cling to it, we will live weary, mistaking distrust for wisdom and never tasting the freedom of true rest. God's plan is written in ink, not in your anxieties. God's plan is not sketched in pencil that may smudge or fade with time, nor is it written in the fragile chalk lines of human intention. It is inscribed in ink, permanent and sure, unaffected by the storms of circumstance or the fragile uncertainties of our choices. We often live as if His design were tentative, as though He were waiting for us to make a mistake so that His plan might unravel, or as though He scribbled lightly so He could erase it if we strayed too far. But the truth is firmer than our fears allow. His plan is not dependent upon our perfection. It is dependent upon His sovereignty. When we fall, He weaves even the broken strands into the tapestry. When we hesitate, He turns our delays into lessons that carry us forward. Nothing is wasted in His authorship because His ink does not run dry. Our anxiety tells us that the story of our life is fragile, that one wrong step will topple everything, that one poor choice will undo what was meant for us. Yet, this is the deception of overthinking, to imagine that we have the power to undo what God has eternally decreed. We may resist Him, we may wander into deserts of our own making, but even there the plan does not vanish. It follows us like a compass that never loses its north, quietly calling us back, steadily unfolding in ways we may not recognize until much later. This permanence should not make us careless but should free us from despair, for it means our future is not hanging by the thin thread of our own foresight. It means that the author is both wiser and kinder than we can imagine, and He has not abandoned the script of our life to our fragile understanding. The permanence of His plan allows us to rest, to act without the crushing weight of what if, for no what if is greater than God will. His ink has already marked the chapters we have yet to read, and though the lines may twist through valleys and mountains, the story is neither erased nor forgotten. Even when we do not understand, even when the path seems strange, the writing has not blurred. What was set down in love remains secure, and the permanence of that inscription is our quiet strength when the mind longs to overthink what only God has already settled. Peace is not discovered in the frantic search for certainty, nor in the endless pursuit of knowing every turn of the road ahead. It is found in the steady presence of the shepherd, who walks before us with a staff that guides and a voice that calls. Many imagine that peace will arrive once they have secured a perfect map, when they can trace every path, anticipate every danger, and prepare for every obstacle. Yet even with a map in hand, the heart would remain restless, for the terrain of life changes with each step, and no drawing on paper can account for the surprises of a living world. True peace does not come from seeing the path, but from knowing the guide. To follow the shepherd is to walk in trust, to release the burden of controlling what cannot be controlled, to move forward with courage even when the road bends into shadow. The sheep does not demand to see beyond the hill, it listens for the voice it knows. That voice is enough. In the same way, the soul finds rest not in mastering tomorrow, but in walking close enough to hear the whisper that says, "This is the way, walk in it." When we chase maps, we become lost in speculation, trapped in the maze of our own thoughts. But when we follow the shepherd, each step becomes lighter, for we know that he sees what we cannot, and that his sight is unclouded by fear. The valleys that frighten us, the cliffs that threaten us, the deserts that weary us, all are already within his knowledge, and he leads us through them with purpose. To cling to the map is to cling to the illusion of control, but to cling to the shepherd is to embrace reality itself, for only he knows the terrain in its fullness. Peace, then, is not the absence of uncertainty, but the presence of trust. It is the deep assurance that no matter how unknown the future feels, it is not unknown to him. It is the freedom of letting go, of walking with steady steps because the one who walks with us has already measured the ground. When the heart rests in the shepherd's nearness, fear loosens its grip, and the restless need to overthink is replaced by the quiet strength of trust. Peace is found in following the shepherd, not in knowing the map.